They say routines keep a marriage alive. I'd argue they're also the best way to spot a crack before the whole thing caves in. Every Thursday, like clockwork, I wrap up the city council meeting by 9:30 p.m. We debate zoning laws no one reads, shake hands like it's the 50s, and I drive the same 6-minute route home. I'm always in by 10:15. My wife Marie, she's usually there by 9:30, sometimes earlier, usually curled up with a glass of overpriced rosé and reruns of The Real Housewives of Somewhere Expensive. We're not flashy, we're not dramatic, we're the kind of couple that organizes the junk drawer and keeps the spice rack alphabetized, or we were. It started small, because it always does. First, she started wearing a new perfume. Not bad. Kind of citrusy with a kick, like a lemon got drunk on gin. I noticed because I notice everything. Comes with the job. IT work by day, city council by passion. My brain's wired to spot patterns and exceptions. Then came the voice message incident. I was walking past the kitchen, and she was holding her phone low, like a teenager hiding texts from a nosy parent. One swipe and poof, message deleted. She smiled too quickly after, said it was spam. Spam with her name in it, apparently. Still, I said nothing. You don't bring a sledgehammer to a creaking floorboard. But the next Thursday, I forgot my laptop at the council hall. I turned around halfway home. Figured I'd be 20 minutes early. Her car was already in the driveway, parked crooked, like she'd skidded in on 2 wheels. House lights off. Silence. No music, no TV. I didn't even ring the doorbell. Just sat there, staring at the front door, then drove off like a coward. Or maybe like a man who needed one more puzzle piece. The missing piece came from her sister, Claire. Claire's a widow. Raised Marie after their mom passed. She's as close to me as blood, and when she invites us to dinner, we show up. That night, over meatloaf and Cabernet, she says, "Oh, and Jacob stopped by yesterday. Wanted to talk about that charity project you two are cooking up. Sounded exciting." Jacob? I smiled, nodded, took another sip of wine to mask the heat crawling up my neck. Jacob owns a fitness place, Form Zone. It's one of those smaller clubs with matte black walls, EDM on loop, and protein bars that taste like compressed drywall. He's an old family friend. Used to spar with me in backyard badminton, at summer cookouts. Always had something to prove. Marie never mentioned a project with him, and trust me, I'd remember. That night I didn't sleep much. Instead, I stayed up researching tiny audio recorders. Found one disguised as a flashlight keychain. Cost me $24.99 and came with the tagline, "The last gadget you'll ever need." Dramatic, sure, but accurate. Gave it to her the next week. Tucked in a small gift box for our anniversary. She laughed, called it cute. A flashlight? What if I'm attacked by a raccoon in the parking lot? Then you'll blind him and run, I smiled. Safety first. She clipped it to her purse. I kissed her on the forehead. Inside, my stomach was doing somersaults. Look, I didn't want to be this guy, the I bugged my wife guy, but something inside me, call it instinct, call it too many late-night podcasts, was screaming that this wasn't just anxiety or boredom. Something was wrong. Not loud wrong, subtle wrong, the kind that smells like smoke before you see the flames. The first 3 days were quiet. Some background chatter, her humming to the radio, gossip with coworkers about someone's botched lip. Filler. Then came the Friday file. I opened it over coffee, headphones on, her voice, then another. Jacob, muffled, but clear enough. You could have told him about the fundraiser, her. I didn't want to lie, just not the whole truth. Jacob. He's not suspicious? A pause. No, he's predictable. Ouch. I paused the file, rewound, played it again, predictable. They talked a bit more. Nothing explicit. But then she said something about meeting same place 112, and my stomach dropped. Westwood Suites. I knew the place. A Motel 15. Minutes out of town, right off the interstate. Rooms by the hour, faux wood panels, a vending machine that hasn't been stocked since Obama's first term. Room 112. Still, I waited. Maybe I wanted more proof. Maybe I wanted to see her lie to my face. The next Thursday, I told her the council meeting might run late. Instead, I parked a block away at my buddy Pete's place and walked home. At 9:10 p.m., she left the house. Ponytail, hoodie, yoga pants, no gym bag. I didn't follow. I sat in our living room, lights off, hands shaking slightly as I held the keychain in my palm. The light still worked. At 12:15 a.m., she came back, pulled into the driveway, stopped short. My car was back. I'd parked, it across the gate. She got out slowly, tried the garage code. It was disabled. I was already on the porch in the dark, sitting in our old rocking chair. The one she painted seafoam green after watching too much HGTV. She froze when she saw me. "Hey, you're home?" "Yeah," I said. "Meeting got canceled. Thought I'd surprise you." She smiled, tense. "I just went for a walk. Needed some air." I nodded. "In Westwood?" Her face fell. And in that silence, I knew two things for sure. One, she'd never meant for me to find out. Two, I wasn't the predictable one anymore. You know the thing about silence? It doesn't lie. Marie stood at the gate, keys in hand, wearing that oversized gray hoodie she'd stolen from me 3 winters ago. The one with the coffee stains shaped like Florida, and the frayed drawstrings she used to chew on while watching true crime shows. Her sneakers were spotless. Her face was too still. "I went for a walk," she said again, quieter this time, as if repeating the lie would smooth out its wrinkles. I didn't move. I just rocked slightly in the chair she once insisted we repaint, to match the beach cottage aesthetic, even though we lived in Colorado. The shadows from the porch light carved long lines across her face, and in that moment, I could see her brain working overtime, flipping through mental flashcards of possible excuses, looking for one that might still stick. She opened her mouth, probably to throw me a second lie, but I beat her to it. How was room 112? That hit her like a slap made of ice, not a scream, not a threat. Just that room number, clinical, precise, unforgettable. She looked down, then up, like maybe the stars could bail her out. "You followed me?" "No," I said, still not raising my voice. "I didn't need to." I let that hang in the air while I stood up, slowly, brushing off imaginary dust from my jeans just to give her a few extra seconds to sweat. She didn't say a word. Maybe she knew this wasn't a confrontation, it was an audit, and I had receipts. You see, when you work in IT for over a decade, you learn that people rarely lie in a clever way. They lie in convenient ways, ways that fit into their existing schedule, that don't ruffle the edges too much. They don't delete the entire story. They just crop out the inconvenient parts, like trimming fat off a steak and pretending it was never there to begin with. I didn't scream. Didn't ask why. I just told her I was tired and going to bed, and that we'd talk later, and boy, did we. But first, I had work to do. Not IT work, reconnaissance. Over the next week, I became a ghost in my own life. I canceled 2 council meetings, claimed I was slammed with remote projects, and began tracking patterns like I was debugging our marriage. She didn't suspect a thing. On Monday, she left at 6:45 a.m., said she was meeting a supplier for the spa. I tailed her from a half-block away in my buddy's dusty Ford Explorer, which still smelled like beef jerky and broken dreams. She drove past the supplier's building like it didn't even exist and parked 2 blocks from Form Zone, the gym. Jacob owned the kind of place with frosted glass windows, overly motivational wall quotes, and exactly 1 towel that somehow always smelled like burnt rubber. She didn't go inside. Instead, she waited in her car. 2 minutes later, a tall figure in a black windbreaker came out of the side entrance and got into her car. They didn't drive anywhere. They just sat there. For 17 minutes. I timed it. No one sits silently in a car for 17 minutes. Not unless they're negotiating a hostage situation or making out like teenagers at prom. Later that day, she came home humming. Humming. Like someone who just had a great workout, only her Apple Watch hadn't logged a single step between 7 and 8 a.m. Again, I said nothing because now I wasn't just collecting evidence, I was collecting the story, the full arc. The betrayal wasn't just in the act, it was in the strategy, the rehearsed casualness, the precision with which she returned to our life like nothing happened. The final nail came from someone who didn't even realize they were holding a hammer. Her name was Lindsay, one of Marie's spa co-workers, the kind of woman who overshares by default and whispers like her voice has a velvet setting. We bumped into each other at the hardware store. I was picking up LED lights for the garage. She was buying candles that smelled like weathered leather, whatever the hell that means. We made small talk. She mentioned Marie seemed off lately. Emotional, she said, like really deep in her head. Told me she didn't know how to move forward. I smiled like a man who didn't know a damn thing. Asked, "She say what it was about?" "No," Lindsay replied, glancing around like we were in a spy movie. "But she did mention Jacob, like kind of a lot." I thanked her, paid for my lights, and drove home listening to 90s alt-rock at full volume. Not because I was angry, but because I needed to feel something that didn't involve calculating exactly when my wife's affection had been outsourced to a man who thought creatine was a personality trait. Thursday came, the day we always did, our own thing. Me with the council, her with her me time, which I now knew was short for motel-based adultery. I told her the meeting would run late. At 7:12 p.m., she left the house. Hair done up, no gym bag, no purse. Just that same hoodie, zipped halfway like she wanted to look low-key but cute. She walked past the driveway and got into a car I didn't recognize. A silver SUV with tinted windows and a Form Zone sticker on the bumper. Of course. I waited another hour, then parked my car sideways across the driveway, just enough to block her return, but not enough to draw the neighbors' attention. Then I settled into the porch again. Same seafoam chair, same porch light, only this time I had a beer and a whole lot less sympathy. At 10:19 p.m., the SUV rolled in. She stepped out. Stopped. Her eyes met mine, and she froze. She didn't even try a lie this time. Just stood there like someone who'd finally been caught cheating on a test they wrote the answers for themselves. I took a long sip of beer, let the night wrap around the silence like a weighted blanket, and finally said, "Go ahead, tell me what flavor lie it is tonight." She didn't move at first, just stood there with that look on her face like a student called to the board with an empty cheat sheet. I didn't yell, didn't demand explanations. I just nodded toward the porch and said, "Sit." She walked up the steps slowly, like every inch was a confession, took the chair across from me, the one with the worn-out cushion she swore she'd reupholster last spring. She never did. Funny how some promises stay broken for so long you stop noticing the sharp edges. "I want to talk," I said, "and I want you to listen. Not interrupt, not spin. Just listen." She nodded, small and tight. I leaned back in the rocking chair, letting the wood creak under my weight, and began like I was reading from a file I'd already memorized. "I know about room 112 at Westwood Suites. I know about the Form Zone SUV. I know about the Thursday me time that wasn't. And I know that you've been seeing Jacob for, what is it now? 6 weeks? 7? Her lips parted like she was going to respond, but I held up one hand and kept going. "I even know what you said to him last Wednesday, in your car, behind the gym. You told him, and I quote, 'I think I'm going to tell Oliver I want a baby. He'll be thrilled. I just want something real. But you and I, it doesn't stop.'" She flinched like I'd thrown something at her, but it wasn't violence. It was her own voice, mirrored back in the worst lighting possible. "I was going to forgive you," I said calmly, like I was explaining a budgeting spreadsheet. "Really, I was. I thought maybe you got lost. Maybe he filled a space I didn't see. But then I heard that line, about the baby." She started crying then. Soft, messy tears, the kind people make when the apology is half shame, half strategy. We're going to use a child to patch this up. Like putting a fresh coat of paint over rotted wood. Like I wouldn't notice. Like you could make me a father and still keep your Thursday appointment at the roadside motel." "Oliver." "No." My voice didn't rise, but it hardened like concrete. "You don't get to talk yet." I stood up, walked to the edge of the porch, staring out at the hydrangeas she planted last fall. They were blooming now. Big, blue, beautiful lies. You know what I dreamed about? I said, still facing the yard. I dreamed about teaching our kid how to ride a bike, about painting the baby's room with that dumb giraffe wallpaper you liked, about Sunday mornings with pancakes and Claire babysitting while we snuck off to the farmer's market like we were still dating. I had the whole damn future written like a script. I turned to face her. And now it's all ash, she covered, her face with her hands, as if that would erase the moment. I sat back down and looked her dead in the eye. I'm leaving. There won't be a dramatic scene, no suitcase throwing, no Facebook announcement, just silence. Like you gave me for the past 2 months. She reached for my hand, and I let her fingers touch mine for 1 second, just long enough for her to think there was hope, then pulled away. I don't hate you, I said, but I don't recognize you either, and I'm not going to stay married to a stranger, she whispered. It's over with him. I swear, it meant nothing. I was confused, lonely. It was a mistake. I gave her a look that was part tired, part pity. You planned a pregnancy while sleeping with someone else. That's not confusion. That's architecture. She cried harder, kept begging, promised therapy, clean slates, fresh starts, all the usual ingredients in a relationship stew that's already been burned black at the bottom of the pot. I just shook my head. Then, after a moment of silence, I said, You'll tell Claire. Not everything. She doesn't need that. But enough. Say we grew apart. Say we couldn't make it work. I'll nod. I'll smile. I'll even let her think I messed it up. But you don't get to break her heart with the full truth. She raised you. You don't get to take her down with you. Marie nodded slowly, lips trembling. And one more thing, I added, standing once again and picking up my keys. Tell Jacob if I ever see him anywhere near me, anywhere near this house, I won't talk. I won't yell. But I will remind him why they put mirrors on the ceiling in room 112 so cowards can look themselves in the eye. I left that night. Didn't slam the door, didn't pack everything. Just grabbed the essentials, laptop, passport, running shoes, the mug that says World's Okayest Husband, which now felt more ironic than funny. I moved into a small apartment above a bookstore. Quiet, clean, peaceful in the way a monastery must feel after the last tourist leaves. I didn't talk to Marie again. Not directly. We handled everything through emails and lawyers, cold, efficient, sterile, like two professionals finalizing a contract that had long since expired. Then, 6 months later, I got a postcard. No return address, no decoration. Just a plain white card with one sentence written in Claire's neat, careful handwriting. You did the right thing. Thank you for not breaking all of us. I stared at it for a long time. Then I slid it into the back of that dumb giraffe wallpaper sample we never used, and finally felt something close to peace.